Warning. This video contains words that are outlawed. For your safety, the loving and caring communists of Canada have deleted all forbidden words. All hail, glorious leader Justin Castro, praise and blessings be on his name.
For more information. Having said that, we are ready to go with Stefan. I know the Track Addict listening audience certainly wants to get that update in regards to your health. And welcome back to the show. And I know you want to talk infrastructure first.
Well, I'm going to be rambling all over the place, I think, as usual, Eric.
Sounds good to me. I do quite a bit of that myself.
So, for those that don't know what happened, because I've been, out of the loop for more than a month now. But beginning of this month, I had a medical emergency, and which is really shocking for me because I have never been to a doctor. I've never been to a hospital. I don't go to doctors. I don't go to hospitals because as a, kung fu master, which is what I'm supposed to be, I am in touch with my own body. And if I feel there's something not right, I'll look into it myself. I'll diagnose myself and either work out harder or eat better,
Right.
And the only time that I ever was treated by a doctor was when I was about 6 years old. I had an ear infection. And back then, the doctor, believe it or not, came to my house.
Oh, imagine that.
Yeah, it was called a house call. The doctors would actually go to your house. You didn't have to go to the hospital. But that was the last time I'd actually had anything to do with a doctor. But, again, and thanks to community, Eric, I've been talking about this for 5 years. Find a community, work together, help each other out. But it was a member of my community, Dixie, that called me on the day that I had this sort of attack. And I didn't want to go to the doctor. I never go to a doctor. But she insisted, and she drove me to the hospital. And it was a good thing, too, because I was on death's door. I had congenital heart failure, heart arrhythmia, and double pneumonia. So it was really a bad situation. But here's what I've learned. First of all, thank God I live in a small town. Now, we've talked about this, Eric, many times, and it's advice I give to everybody. If you're going to survive what's coming, you need to be part of a community. And your best hopes of forming a community is outside of the city. You can't do this in the city. People in the city don't work together. They're under too much stress and too much programming. They can't cooperate. They're suspicious of each other. It's a low-trust environment. Whereas, as I've mentioned many times, out here in the countryside, in the rural area, in farm country, Amish country, Mennonite country, we even got Quakers out here. It's a higher trust society, and it's an easier to form community. So they took me to the local hospital here in town, which is a small town. I was admitted like in 5 minutes. There was only one person ahead of me in emergency.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that must be nice.
Mm-hmm. And that person was done in 5 minutes, and they admitted me right away, and I was seen by a doctor right away, and the nurses, and they hooked me up, and, anyways, I was in there for 3 nights and 4 days, and went through all the battery of tests, and I was on, IVs with antibiotics. I think they fed me 6 liters of antibiotics through the IV, and, okay, so I'm okay now. I still don't feel 100% like I used to. I don't feel like I'm 25 anymore. But, I'm doing better. But thank God for the small hospital. Eric, if it had been anywhere else, if I'd been in Toronto and had to go to the hospital, you're looking at admission waits of between 6 to 14 hours.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it. Yeah, I remember it was my story back in the day when I was in Raleigh, and I was going through some health stuff. Actually, what started me getting on the path to taking Xanax was caffeine withdrawal. I was drinking so much caffeine during grad school. While going to grad school, I was working full time, and I was dating a girl, and I was driving out to her area like virtually every night. I was only running off of like 3 hours sleep every day, like consistently, and probably like 12 cups of coffee. And then when I cold turkeyed it down in Raleigh, and I shouldn't have, my doctor didn't. I mean, I just didn't really think twice about it. I just went through all kinds of neurological craziness, basically. And I basically had a grand mal seizure off of it. And I remember sitting there. I think it was like around. I think I called 911. It was probably like around like 10 p.m. They had to bust down my door, the fire trucks, threw me back in the truck. I was flopping around like a fish. My blood pressure was like 290 over like 240 or something. I was like, this is it. I'm dead. And then by the time we got to the hospital, I was like, okay, so I guess I'll be here for a quick second. No, about 12 hours later. It was like the following morning or like noon or something like that. Like I wasn't even seen that night. I was like, I could have just died out here. And there was just like a whole bunch of us out in the lobby, and I was just sitting there in a wheelchair. And I was like, man, this can't be good. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm right there with you. I mean, by God's grace, I mean, I'm here today. But like, I can't imagine how many people just die like out in the lobby who have a serious emergency. But I don't know. I just want to interject that. I don't think I ever told you that story.
No, I didn't know that story. But yeah, that blood pressure, that was my blood pressure too, like 287 over 189 or something like that, 257 over 1. Anyways, but I lucked out, Eric. I lucked out that they, my Dixie brought me to this hospital here, because since then, and by the way, the staff was wonderful. All the people were really nice to me. They were very professional. Needless to say, there were no refugees working in the hospital. Thank God. They were all whites, mostly Christians, and they were the best people. They were so kind and helpful. I'm blown away. It was a wonderful hospital. They really looked after me, and now I'm better, thank God. But if I had been anywhere else, I would have been screwed, because since that time I've been in touch with ambulance attendants and people that have gone to the other hospitals in the area around here. Like there's London Hospital, there's Woodstock, there's Tilsonburg. And they all tell me that the wait lines, for example, in London are, again, 8 hours to get into emergency. But London was one of the small towns that was targeted by immigration. So they have a lot of diversity in London. And shock, horror, anytime you have a lot of diversity in that town or that city, your medical system is bullshit. It's crap. It's busted.
Yeah.
Because they can't deal with all, with the immigrants, they go to the hospital every time they sneeze. They're in the emergency room. And of course, it's all free for them, right? They don't have to pay for anything either. And so the hospital staff and the doctors, their time is, dominated by immigrants for various diseases. And a lot of them arrive in the country sick as well from weird-ass diseases that they caught in their home countries. So if it had been anywhere else, I would have been screwed. But thank goodness we don't have enough diversity yet in this small town. Now, they're working to change it. The government is targeting it. But how this ties into infrastructure is this. I've since researched it, and it turns out that all the small town hospitals within like 500 miles of here are all closing down. They are already limiting the number of hours that the emergency room will operate, because they can't support the emergency rooms. They can't support the staff to work there. And so, if you have an emergency and you go to a local hospital, the emergency room might be closed down due to lack of funding.
Yeah, the one by me just recently closed down. I mean, they started closing down like various portions of the hospital because, there's like ICU and this NICU and all this stuff. But now it's pretty much just like closed down altogether. And it's like right around the corner from me. Fortunately, there's another one about 10 minutes away. But yeah, a lot what's happening there too. But even think about this point too, Stefan, like if we were back during COVID time and God forbid you were sick then, who knows whether, listen, there's a lot of us who are suspicious of these mainstream hospitals actually intentionally trying to kill people. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
With the what is that? Not the ventilator. Is it called the ventilator? What's that thing they were putting people on with COVID? And it
Yeah.
was it a ventilator? Yeah, okay, ventilator. Yeah, there was even a priest friend of mine close to the program, who was doing my show for years, and I'm highly suspect that they killed him to get another case under their belt and get some money, because he was on the up and up, and then all of a sudden within a 24-hour period he just died. And from some people that are close to me, they basically messaged me and they said that were close to him, they were highly suspicious that he's put on a ventilator. Just, he was killed basically.
Yeah.
Had a heart attack and died. So I don't know.
I wouldn't
That's
doubt
scary,
it.
man.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
So what? So it turns out that they're doing this all over the place, all over the country. There in the United States, here in Canada. I think it's part of their attack. They want to flush people out of the rural countryside into the cities. Because what they're doing with these small hospitals, if they get an emergency, they are redirecting them to the next biggest city that still has a hospital, that still operates an emergency room. So again, in our community, we have our own medical team. We've got, a dozen health practitioners. We got naturopaths. We got Chinese doctors. We got herbalists. Because you need to take care of your own health, and as much as you can, restrict your dependency on public health. Right. So,
Yeah.
for what I had to go to a hospital. My medical team would not have been
For
able
sure.
to take care of it, right? So
Yeah, another consideration too, Stefan, is with the cyber attacks. There were some stories down here in the United States of cyber attacks hitting mainstream hospitals and their power going down, whether it be a half a day or some hours. But down the post side to that, and again, I don't know how this works. I'm just assuming a lot of what they do now is like linked up to like digital, like maybe stuff isn't written down as much as it was in decades past. But apparently they were like overdosing people, and they were giving people wrong drugs, and some people were dying. So that there's that whole thing too of like, with these cyber attacks coming, what happens on the post side to that? You know what I mean? Like that's sketchy too as well. So I don't know, but like, listen, if you got to go, you got to go. I mean, if you're on death's door, what else are you gonna do?
yeah, no. I needed this emergency room. They were wonderful, and they saved my life. But I was lucky again. I was lucky, Eric, because if it had been anywhere else, it would have been a greater disaster. So, but first of all, this is part of the strategy of the New World Order. Okay, they don't like people out in the rural countryside. We already heard all the stories. They're trying to shut down the farmers. They're trying to prevent you from growing vegetables in your backyard, for crying out loud. They hate the idea that we might be somewhere out in the countryside feeding ourselves and not reliant on the government, and they don't know what we're up to, which we'll get into at the end of today's interview when we talk about OPSEC. Because you think they're not listening, they're not looking for people like us. They are. They really are.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that's an interesting point too. You raise about communities. I mean, because obviously we've talked about that in times past, but a specific point to be made, like when you're establishing these communities, like you better try to start recruiting not only medical people into your own communities, because like you said, if you don't have anyone within miles, and let's say we're in a bird flu lockdown situation, and you're not going to be more than likely be able to be carried off in quite a distance, then you're gonna be in serious, serious problems. But also dental too. Like you gotta have all this stuff like in house in your community, or at least very near close by. Because I'm right there with you, man. When the whole infrastructure goes down and collapses, and oh, by the way, that's a part of the dark winter script. They want to collapse the infrastructure on purpose during the dark winter script. And that's why I try to collect as much medical stuff as I can. I try to get antibiotics every few months, just basic medical stuff. I mean, even stuff for like gunshots and stuff, because who knows what the world's going to look like.
Right.
in the months ahead.
No, well, we know what the world's going to look like, Eric. That's why we're getting ready for that. But again, part of the part of your planning should be medical. Now, yeah, everybody should have a first aid kit, but boy, oh boy, when we're talking with serious diseases or serious injuries, a first aid kit just doesn't cut it. Like you said, you need to stockpile antibiotics, which I do. And by the way, an update for those of you who want to know where I get my antibiotics. I order them online from Fish Mox. Now, their supplier had been intercepted, and they've been out of antibiotics for like 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I just got an email that they found a new supplier, so now they're selling the antibiotics again. So if you
they're getting harder to find. Yeah, not like you said. I think they've got everything back, but I'm pretty sure that's where my last round I had to go through. Fish Mox. Are they down? Are they? I'm trying to think. Was it California or like somewhere in the West Coast? I think they're
something like
Arizona,
that. I don't
maybe?
know either. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Fish Mox. Yeah, just Google Fish Mox, you'll find it. It's antibiotics sold for fish. So, but it's the same stuff.
It is the same stuff. Yeah, no, Dr. Kendra Becker, I brought her on the show. She thinks it's more efficacious than even the real stuff you're going to get. She says she thinks it works better. And by the way, too, she also says don't worry about the expiration date on that too. Like if you've got one that's expired 10 years ago, she said you'll still get like an 80 to 85% efficiency rate on it.
Yeah, and I keep mine stored in the refrigerator too, so that extends its life. So part of our survival strategy, again, community, really important, but create a medical community or a medical team within your community, because and especially for those of us that we're smart enough to get out of the city and we're living in the rural areas or even in cottage country, way up in the sticks. All these small hospitals that are in your area, they're going to shut them down. And they're doing that on purpose. So that way, if you get sick, because, for example, here we have a lot of retirees that live in small cabins way out in the sticks, right? I'm sure you have the same thing there in Ohio, right? But here a little bit further up north, Canada is all built up along the southern border with the U.S., but as soon as you drive 200 miles north, man, you're in the forest, right? There's small towns every 50 miles. And they're doing that on purpose. Now, they had a program here where the government actually funded it, where they had a paramedic vehicle that would go around and visit all these retirees that lived out in secluded cabins in the forest. And, they would renew the prescription and take their blood pressure and basically act like a medical service, which is a great idea because they're too far away to get to the local small town hospital. But what I'm saying is they're closing down the local small town hospital. So if you get sick, you're going to be forced to go to the big city, and God knows if you'll ever get out of there again. So the other thing, and again, this is part of the collapse of the infrastructure. Look what's going on here. We don't have money to run to hire an extra nurse to keep the emergency room open at the local hospital. But Justin Castro can send $10 billion to the Ukraine.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Oh, but also we can spend, $50 billion to import some Somalians and put them up in hotels, but we don't have money for an extra nurse. So this is on purpose. Now, towards the end of every civilization, the infrastructure always collapses, and a classic example is China. And the reason that would happen is because of government corruption. So the government has a budget that says, well, we're going to spend so much money to repair the dikes. But all that money gets siphoned off in corruption and kickbacks and money laundering. So actually, no money goes to maintain the dikes. Well, lo and behold, the dikes burst and the countryside is flooded. That's why there's a saying in Chinese history that droughts and floods are the sign of the end of the dynasty. So the droughts are because, the money that was supposed to go into maintaining irrigation for farms, it's all siphoned off into kickbacks and money laundering schemes, and it goes into the congressman's pocket, and it goes into the senator's pocket, and everybody else in between. And actually, no money gets spent on really doing any irrigation. So the irrigation fails. Now we have a drought, we have starvation, then we have floods. This is what happens in China every time at the end of a dynasty. But we're seeing the same thing now. Money that's supposed to go to repair roads, well, it'll get siphoned off, and then they steal some, and then they steal some, and then they. So that there's no money that actually fixes the roads. So guess what? In my video, Historical Cycles, I show lots of pictures of collapsed bridges. That's what happens. They can't. The money that was supposed to go to maintain the infrastructure is stolen by the corrupt government.
Mm-hmm.
And so the infrastructure starts to rot. And the same thing with the hospital system. Money that should be going to maintain the hospital system, it's not getting there, so now they're closing down. It's part of the whole infrastructure collapse. The roads.
Yeah,
and
they want a Mad Max world, yeah.
Yeah, I had a power outage just yesterday. There was a slight windstorm. We had a power outage. Well, expect that because, the money they're supposed to be spending on maintaining hydro lines, they can't because they have to pay taxes and they have to pay kickbacks. And so, the energy companies can't afford to maintain their infrastructure. And so it's going to collapse. It always does. And it collapses because we are ruled by a corrupt government and a corrupt bureaucracy that steals the money that should go to replacing this infrastructure. So that is the lesson I have learned, and this is the warning I give to folks. You got to expect that things aren't going to work. And now take a look at the map of where you live, and those of you who are, savvy enough on survivalism have already planned your bug out route to your bug out location. Check if there's any bridges along the way, because those bridges might not be there. We're already seeing that in the States with the flooding, and it's going to get worse.
Or they just might take it out,
Or they just might take it out.
Yep.
So if your bug out route takes you over a bridge, just to be on the safe side, plan an alternate route.
Yeah. No, great advice for sure. Yeah, we got a local bridge by us, very historic here in Ohio Valley. It connects Weirton, West Virginia to Steubenville, Ohio. That thing's got to be hundreds of years old, and literally they're saying that there's no money to redo it, and they're claiming that it could collapse at any point, and it's causing people to drive an extra 15 minutes to kind of go around and take this other route. So, but yeah, that's what they're doing, like you said, and that brings up the whole other topic of people not wanting to pay their taxes anymore. as we see them not taking care of business in house.
Well,
and
your taxes don't go to build the roads or maintain it. Your taxes go directly to the special ones, the ones that God loves the most. I can't name their names because I'll get.
Oh yeah, you can. We're behind a paywall. We know what we're talking about.
Because I get banned on YouTube again. I'm already banned for a week on YouTube.
Yeah, are you? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because I talked about. Well, I won't talk about it, anyways.
But what about OPSEC here? You wanted to talk about that for a few minutes before we let you go.
Okay, so I've always told people that when you form these communities, be really low key. Use a pseudonym for your organization. So if you're going to form a like a preppers community or a survivalist community or any kind of mutual aid community, really, because listen, the government is not like you to help yourself or look after yourself. They hate self-sufficiency and independence. Don't even breathe the word that you're trying to be self-sufficient because the government will come after you. So if you're going to form a mutual aid community like I've been preaching for the last 5 years that everyone should do in order to survive what's coming, call it something nondescript. Call it, like I said, Aunt May's Knitting Club. So that's the name you operate under. I know, well, it sounds paranoid. Well, but if you're going to say, Freedom Cell or American Patriot.
We hate Biden.
American Patriot Society or, okay, good, name it that. And then you'll have every FBI and CIA operative within 100 miles listening into everything you do. So call it Aunt May's Knitting Society. Well, it doesn't matter what you know, you call it that. What you really do at the meetings is, yeah, well, you prepare, you stockpile food, you take firearms lessons, which is everything that our community does. We run firearms licensing courses and ham radio licensing courses, and we grow the gardens and all that. But you couldn't tell that by our name, and we don't ever use the name anyway, so it doesn't matter. But it's part of what we call OPSEC, operational security, which means you have to stay under the radar. For example, at our meetings, it is forbidden. We don't allow you to bring your cell phone into the meeting. Doesn't matter, you've turned it off. They're listening anyways. And they're tracking you anyways. So, when they're tracking you, they see everybody going to this clubhouse, and they'll know where we are and what we're doing. So we don't even allow people to use their cell phones in our meetings, right? It's part of our OPSEC operations. Also, we have radio checks every week. They get on the radio, and we check in with each other and see how the equipment works and what the clarity and the range is and so forth, which is, we've advanced light years in our communications now. We're tied into all the repeaters. We can talk to people in Europe or Japan. It's unbelievable. So we've got a very good communications grid. But you got to be careful even on the communications grid. Now, we got a tip, and again, this is another thing that's good about being part of a community. Like small towns, everybody knows everybody. And so a friend of a friend knew a police officer in one of the local towns. And that police officer told this friend of a friend that he knows that there is a anti-terrorist agency watching a community in our area. Oh, well, that's not good. What community? Now, it turns out the community they are monitoring is not my community. It's not the one I belong to. But it is our sister community, which is 30 minutes down the road, that we often share activities with and participate in different events together. So that's not good. That's really close, too close for comfort.
Yeah, that is close.
And the person of interest, now this is ridiculous. This is so ridiculous, Eric, I don't know what to say, is a granny that bakes cakes. She looks like your Italian grandmother. She's about 4'8". The sweetest woman in the world. All she does is bake cakes. And she runs a roadhouse. But she's got 3 felony charges against her. Why would the government file 3 felony charges against an Italian grandma that bakes cake? Well, she did not shut down her restaurant during the big...
during COVID, yeah.
Yeah. She refused to obey the government's orders to shut down the restaurant. Well, 1 felony conviction, 2 felony convictions, 3 felony convictions. And it turns out they detected some ham radio activity at her restaurant.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. So this attracted the anti-terrorist forces.
Terrorists. The anti-terrorist terrorists.
Yeah. To focus in on her. Like, she's a very good friend of mine. We love each other. What a wonderful, sweet woman. And the least threat in the world to national security. Jesus, Murphy, unbelievable that the government is going to be targeting grandmas, okay? Your government is targeting grandmas because, well, they wouldn't obey. And now we know that the whole shutdown, all of that, was a complete waste of time. None of it did any good. It's a well-known fact now that the 6-foot rule, the masks, and forcing all these businesses to close was completely useless, unmerited. But no, she's still got 6 felony charges.
Right. Yeah.
And now she's under investigation by, government agencies.
The people here to protect us, right? No, yeah, that's it. I mean, listen, if they're going to come after grannies, they're certainly going to come after us, right? I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I tell people, like, don't. People think, oh, wow, you're really being parent. They're not going to come after. No, they're going to come after you. Yes, are you a firearm owner? They're going to come after you. Did you buy some extra food to stockpile? They're going to come after you. Do you belong to a community that goes camping once a month? They're going to come after you. The government hates anything that's healthy and happy and community and camaraderie and independence and self. The government hates that. They're coming after you. They're coming after grannies here. But here's the thing that really tipped off the agencies. Apparently, they were listening in on. Well, they don't listen in, but the ham radio broadcasts get put through the same algorithm, okay? Same algorithm as YouTube and Google and all that. They're searching for scary words and sayings so that they can ban you, right? So they picked up a word that one of the members of our sister community used over the ham radio. And I'm not going to say the word because putting this up on YouTube or wherever we put it up, and I say this word, is again going to alert every goddamn algorithm and every security agency in the country. So I will say it this way. The word is militia. Okay? So if you use that word, because that word terrifies the government, I'm not kidding, that's the thing they are most scared of. That there's going to be all these, secret groups training in the forest. That's why, for the last 20 years, they've all been so demonized, with Ruby Ridge and with Waco and all that. Wow, because so we had to kill them all. That's why it's been so demonized. And even with the Oklahoma City bombing, that was all tied into that, too. It was all to demonize this concept of Minutemen, basically. And the reason they're doing that is because that's the one thing they are terrified of the most. So if you are going to form a community, never mention that word in any communication, not even on the ham radio, because they're monitoring, radio communications.
For sure. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and also...
Yeah, got to be careful. Yeah, be careful. Be careful. And then,
don't mention firearms or training with firearms. That's another one that'll get you flagged right away. And the next 10 members that join your group will all be FBI informants.
Right. Well, even going out, like, to the grocery store, like, if you're going to wear stuff that identifies yourself as, like, being a part of militia or a patriot type or a prepper or a conservative, even, like, I tell people just be plain Jane. I mean, I just try to wear, like, plain black, like, mostly, you know what I mean? Like, I don't wear shirts like, you know what I mean? Like, I hate Joe Biden, or like that's just going to be, like, you're going to stick out. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I think we talked about this on our last show, too. Even, like, I hate to say this as a Catholic, like, I wouldn't have Catholic statues in front of your house. Like, nope. I wouldn't have militia flags flying or Confederate flags flying in the front of the house too. Like, you got to hide in plain sight, I think.
No, don't tread on me. Don't fly that flag. No. You have to play the gray man now. Everybody does. Everybody listening right now, you all have to play the gray man. I mean, you're listening to Eric on Tradcat Night. If the government knew that, you will be put on a list already. Never mind, you're all on a list already.
Okay. Oh yeah, we're all on the list for sure.
We're all on the list, but you don't need to. Like, for example, I never wear, paramilitary style clothes, camouflage. I don't wear it. I don't wear any of that stuff. It's you can tell a mile away. Oh, he must be a prepper because he dresses like this. You wear it if you're hunting in the woods. Okay, fine. There's one guy here that wears camouflage, but he goes out every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning and he comes back with ducks. So
right. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, it's all good. All good advice here, Stefan. We're just about out of time. We're about 40 minutes in. We got a few minutes left. We of course want to give you some shameless self promotion time. What can we help you promote this month, guys? Specials or what's going on?
Well, I'm going to have a flash sale on my online course, The Complete Guide to Forming Communities. I'm going to cut it in half from $100 to $50. I'm going to do that tomorrow. So go to my website, formingcommunities.com. Tomorrow, my course that used to sell for $400 will now be on sale, half price, for $50. Folks, this is the final answer to survive what's coming. $50 to learn what you need to do to form a community, and not just a prepper community, any kind of community, mutual aid, homeschooling, a medical community, lending community, financial community. There's all kinds of things you can do with each other. Co-ops, food co-ops. Our food co-op, we still run it, reduces our grocery bills by 50%, Eric. I'm not kidding. This is, we pay half price for our groceries because we run it through a food co-op, which is a very simple thing to set up. So, with the food prices going through the roof, what are you doing paying retail? So get the course. It's going to be $50, The Complete Guide to Forming Communities, .com. And the sale will start tomorrow, and this is your chance, folks. This is the only way we can survive what's coming. We can't do it by yourself. No man is an island. And also, if you go to my my other website, chinastrategies.com, go to the donate page. If you can kick in a couple of bucks, that would really be great, because this past month has sucked me dry with the medical crisis and prescriptions and lack of income during the whole time. So I am in need of support in that area. If you can, listen, I know everybody is hurting, Eric. Everybody is hurting.
Yeah.
All the businesses that have gone under, all the farmers that are being attacked and they're losing money. So I know the whole world is hurting, but some people have a couple of extra bucks. So if you want to kick it my way, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Stefan, we got him back, coming back on at the end of next month. Listen, we got Malefica Scott going to be joining us from across the pond, and we've got some stuff to get through, including UK election nonsense. Until next time, is any of us.
Warning, our neurosensors have detected subversive thoughts. We will now activate our 5G control towers and erase the last 42 minutes of your memory. Stand by.